Hello, this is Mary Beth Janssens, the Grants Manager for the Community Foundation. This training clip is an amateur production, and your patience and understanding is greatly appreciated during awkward pauses, asides, background noises, or if I happen to correct myself. This is my 5th attempt, and I refuse to be defeated. The following recording clip will provide a step-by-step instruction on how an agency, organization, or entity, which I will refer to as the applicant agency or the agency, can complete the registration necessary to apply to submit a letter of intent for the 2017-2018 General Endowment Letter of Intent. A new applicant agency is one that does not currently have an agency profile on the Foundation's grant portal, EC Impact. Please follow the posted directions in the guidelines on our website to be sure your organization is not already registered. The documents and links I refer to may change from this video and may look slightly different in your experience. Be sure to use the most recent information and not rely on this video alone. For the purpose of this recording, I will complete a single application. In the course of the demonstration, I'll indicate how to apply for an additional request, but I will not continue and complete that second application. For the purpose of this demonstration, it is assumed that the person applying is the primary contact for the applicant agency as well as the proposed program or request. I will indicate when and where additional information can be added, but will assume the agency, proposal, and current user are all one and the same, and all of the contact information is the same for that. Adding users or contacts, editing information, as well as navigating while in the software will be reviewed in an overview demonstration that will be posted to the Foundation website, and hopefully I'll have better luck than this one. Shortcuts and tips that may be mentioned in this clip will be illustrated there as well. The agency should navigate to the website link indicated, and I'm going to copy and paste that into my browser. This software does work with all current browsers, so unless you're really far behind, you should not need to update your browser. You should not see anything come in to your screen when you log on if you're a new user. You will come down here to click here to create a new EC Impact account. I'm just going to hide this. When you do that, you'll see a screen will come up. This software is shared by the United Way of North Central Mass and the Community Foundation of North Central Mass, so it is co-branded. You're going to provide the information for the agency and provide that as the main information that's going to go with the account. You'll need your tax ID number, which should be in the format of 2 numbers dash and then 7 numbers, or all 9 numbers together. For the agency name, please use the name that the agency is incorporated in or known as. So in this case, I'm going to call us New Agency Used for Demo. And I'm going to list the website of this new agency, where NOFT.com. None of this information is verified with the exception of the EIN numbers formation, and it needs to be 9 numbers. Otherwise, it is not registered. However, our staff will be verifying that the agency applying is a legal entity able to apply. Under the account information for a description, you'll just need to put a brief description of your agency. In this case, this agency is created to allow me to apply for the foundation grant. We do great things and help people in 15 or 34 communities. You do have spell check, same as any other browser. You just right click and you can get your spell check there, but quick reminder that spell check does not pick up things like there's, those, twos, and other such items. For your mission statement, you can type your mission statement, or you can go and cut and paste your mission statement from any other site, which would be obviously your own. Let's see if I can get the foundation. And let's see, I'm going to go to our mission statement, and I'm just going to cut and paste this. Right click, and we're going to navigate back. I'm going to paste, and you'll see that that information is pasted in. You may just want to check it out for, see if it has any awkward returns or anything in there, but that can always be edited at a later time. Under the address type for this purpose, you should be listing the main office or physical headquarters of the agency. Zip code. For the email type, you can either put, if you have an informational or blind email for the organization, like info@, you could use that. You can also say that it's going to be executive director or the agency default. I'm going to say that it's the primary, and it's going to be info@, and the new agency used for demos.com. The phone number type, I want to list the main. That should be the direct number to the organization. Under the primary contact, this is going to be the primary contact for the agency. This will usually be the executive director or the equivalent within your organization. And in this case, it is going to be the executive director. If there is a prefix, you can choose that. The only ones that they're generally not used unless they are things like captain or titles that you are regularly used on a regular basis for you. And put in the first name, last name. There's the suffix if needed. Under company, you do not need to put anything if it is the same as the agency. This would be if you were putting, say, a volunteer or a board member and they had another affiliation within the for themselves, you would put that. You could put that there if you'd like. And then for the primary contact, put what their title actually is. Then under preferred login, this is going to be the first login for the organization. You can have as many logins as you'd like, and you will be shown in a later point how to add users. This, you can add as many users as you'd like. You will want to have one that is the main logon, and then give logins to people who you want to have access to the system. And how many you choose, it depends on how much control you want to have on access to the system. So for the preferred username for this, I'm going to use Mary Jane, but I'm going to run it all together. And for the username, a lowercase and uppercase do matter. For the password, the same thing, the lowercase and uppercase do matter. It would be great if you follow the directions in here to get a strong password, but I am going to use my fallback password because I have created so many agencies at this point, I need to be able to remember those passwords. Okay, this is telling me that the name already exists. So it's telling me that you need to contact me by phone to determine the nature of the error. So now I'm going to try again. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have best. I'm going to use imaging. Executive Director. For the username is going to be excuse me for 1 second. I am going to turn off those autofills. Actually, that should be all set. At this point, after you've correctly filled out the application to have it understand that you are not duplicating an effort, you'll be given a choice of the current applications for the general endowment. The 3 choices are the animal welfare and environment category, the general or miscellaneous category, and the organizational development category. As the guidelines state, you can apply for up to 2 grants, provided one is in the organizational development category. So at this point, depending on what your intention is, you would choose the one that you intend to apply for. So I'm going to choose the animal welfare and click next. At this point, it is going to ask me to certify that the agency meets the requirements. If you feel that you need to answer no to any of those questions before you continue, please give us a call. It is much easier to answer your questions and get you through that rather than having to recreate the actual profile if you are declined. So you're going to follow down, complete the registration. Now it's saying, thank you for registering your agency. And it's going to tell you that you need to create a new program. If you were an existing agency, you could choose an existing program, but you will need to change one. You may want to print out that registration if you'd like. Usually don't have any issues with that, but you can do so if you'd like to do that. It's going to list all of the information that you gave, as well as the request summary, and it's going to re-verify and show you your answers to the verification. You're going to click next. You're going to come up and see that you now see the animal welfare, the information there about that. When you scroll to the bottom, you now have the agency portion of the application, and which is a cover sheet as well as an area to upload the required documents, which is either your 501c3 determination letter or articles of incorporation. You now need to create a new program or proposal and assign it to this application. And For the animal and welfare environment, as well as the general or other categories of the grant process, you should use a program name that best describes your request. For instance, low-cost dog and pet adoption in North Central Mass, or dropout prevention presentation series. The name doesn't need to include your agency name, should not be the same as your agency name, but it should somewhat convey the nature of the grant request it's going to be created for. In the organizational development category, please use a program name that best describes the request. For instance, strategic planning and mission statement revision, or certification of volunteers in CPR. You do not need to refer to the general endowment or the category of the ask in the program name. And the program description should be a brief overview of the program or the project proposal. So I'm going to create a new program. And in this case, we're going to say low-cost adoption for senior cats and dogs. I want to put in a description of what that program does. A program that provides for the adoption of cats and dogs currently in our shelter that are 5 years or older. This low-cost program is intended to increase the adoption of these particular animals. You're going to come down and you want to indicate the primary contact for the proposal. In this case, we're saying that it is me, Mary Jane Dobson. If you, at this point, wanted to choose another person's name, you would need to add them, and you could do that through adding a new item. I will cover that in another video, but in this case, I'm choosing Mary Jane Dobson. Now I'm going down and I'm going to be putting in information about the program. This is not about Mary Jane, it's not about the agency. This is going to be about the program. But I do have the option to copy the primary address of the agency, and as I mentioned earlier, we are going to assume that they are all one and the same. So I'm going to press to copy the agency's primary address. Under the program type, I'm just going to put that it's the primary. And under the email address, it's going to be the agency default. It could also be the primary if that was your choice. How you categorize the email does not make a big difference unless for any particular contact you choose more than one email to list on their profile. So here I'm going to say the agency default or the executive director equivalent, which I believe we said was Mary Jane Dobson at xyz.com. And then under the phone type, you want to put the main, and this is going to be the program, the phone number that should be associated with the proposal subject and the program name. So we're going to save and we're going to complete that registration. It's telling us if we complete to complete the registration, we need to click below. This is again just a description of the general endowment process. A link to the guidelines is here, as well as some information about tips on what your letter of intent should contain. these are available in the Resource Center, which is an area covered in another video. When you hit complete registration, your screen will pause for a few minutes, and then it should bring you up and say, thank you that your responses were submitted, you're successful, and an email confirmation was sent to the email provided. At the bottom, we can click continue, and we're brought to the home page. And you'll see down here that the status is approved. If you wanted to print this page, you could. Go down to the bottom and continue. I do want to point out quickly that you have a timer here that's telling you how much time you have left in the session. When you reach the 30-minute mark, you will get a pop-up that tells you that you are about to leave. An important thing within this software is to save your information at every chance possible, and I will indicate where those are throughout the process. There are also ways that I will recommend on how you can better prepare for doing this process. Now that I've registered the first program that request that I want to make, I now have a full application here, which is the agency cover sheet, the uploads that I'm going to be required to make, and the actual general endowment concept paper for the program. Best suggestion or best practice is to print a viewable version of this entire application. By doing that, you're going to get a pop-up that is going to list out the actual application on all parts of that. What I recommend is either printing that directly or saving it as a PDF so that you can print that out and take a look at the questions that are there and have the opportunity to write out your answers, especially on the longer narratives, in a Word document or other document that you can cut and paste to and have saved, so that if at any point you are knocked off of the software and haven't saved recently, you are not in a huge amount of hurt, as probably the best way that I can put it. So now that the application is here, we're going to assume that I have all the information off the top of my head, and I'm not going to use a Word document, so I'm going to start on the application. I did mention that I would show you how to apply for the second available category if that applies to your organization, and you would do that by coming over to this Apply Report box, click on the View and Request Inclusion in the Open Funding Process. When you click on that, you will be given a list of the existing and open RFPs that you're eligible for. However, please remember that you may only submit 2 applications if one of them is an organizational development letter. Then that would be the case here. You would click on that, continue, and you would follow through the same process you did for the original program that you created. In that case, you would want to create another program that speaks to the activities that are going to happen in the organizational development proposal. So it would be actually a completely different program. Instead, I'm going to go back to the home page. And now when I log into the software, this is what I am going to see. I will go over navigation within the system in another video. In this Apply Report, you will always see any open processes that are available to be applied for, and if your organization qualifies and you wish to do so, you can apply through that. Below that will be a listing of any applications or processes, which is what we call the applications, the reporting, any of that type of activity is what's referred to as a process. The items that are links are going to take you directly to any application or process packets. Then that will contain all of the papers or forms that you need to fill out to complete an application. When you click on, if you are an agency that ends up having activity with both the Community Foundation and the United Way, you will see a listing for each of those separately. This ribbon will tell you the status that you're in as you go through the application. This is saying that you're not started, you haven't gone into the application. That not started will stay in this status until you save information into any of the areas that are available. In progress will be when you've entered into any part of the application and uploaded or entered and saved information. Ready to submit will indicate that you've met all the requirements to validate the application. And when it's submitted, this is going to be submitted. You do not need to worry about any of this information as far as including. It's just saying that you want this information included when you personally print out your application. You can print a blank application before anything's entered, which you do here. As soon as you begin entering information, when you click on this, you're going to get the entered information. So this is a great way, once you've completed the application, if someone else needs to review it, but they're not going to access the software. If you print an application for them that way, it will have all of your answers. This status here tells you what the status of the particular item is, and it's going to be not started, in progress, or submitted. When you click in on the link, it's going to fill in any information that is available and linked. If any of that information is incorrect and you're able to click into the box, you can make changes here. However, that will not apply to the overall agency profile. You'll need to go into the agency profile and make those changes. Otherwise, the wrong information will continue to populate into your applications. If you do not have access, for instance, in the case of, in this case I don't have them turned off yet, but if you were unable to link into that agency name, that would mean that that's something that we don't want you to have access to, which you normally will not. And if you need to make a change, you will need to let myself or Sue Cordio at the foundation know, and we'll make that change. Here you're going to answer, again, one of the qualification questions, and this is just to indicate to the reviewers that you do qualify. So do you have a current status as a 501c3, have a fiscal sponsor that does, or qualify otherwise? You can go ahead and answer yes to that. If you have to answer no, please contact us before you continue. And then you want to give us the year that the organization was established. Total organization budget. This is going to be your entire agency budget. So I'm going to say it's going to be $1 million. Under the fiscal year, month and date, we need you to give us the month that your fiscal year begins on and the day of the month that it begins on. How many board members or trustees or whatever governing unit you have, how many members does that consist of? How many are in the entire staff of the organization? And if you use volunteers, approximately how many volunteers do you have at the moment? The agency mission statement should have populated through. The overview and focus in here, you are going to see the information that you provided in the description. You can add to this information or edit this information. And in this case, remember, this is what the reviewers are going to look at. So if you want to speak a little bit more about the agency with respect to the application, this is the place that you want to do this. So I'm going to say we have a state-of-the-art veterinary, and I don't know how to spell veterinary, so there we go. Facility, and use volunteer staff to keep low. Under the population served, I want to tell us if you have a specific population, perhaps if you're a school or an organization that only deals with low income, if you happen to be a specific, speak to a specific area of individuals, if you're only in one town, whatever describes the population that you serve. We serve 23 communities in the North Central region and provide adoption assistance to any residents who qualify. This would be the place to indicate if you deal with a specific demographic of people or how people are, if people are referred to you, your population served is who do you provide services to or for. Under approval, you want to indicate that this information is correct to the best of your knowledge by clicking on that button, and then put the approved first and last name. In this case, I'm acting as Mary Jane Dobson, but if the person applying was not the person approving it, the person approving it would need to put their information in and their title. And then I mentioned about saving your work often. Anytime you're in a screen, if you navigate to the bottom, you'll see you have several options, and they may change slightly depending on the screen that you're in, but they fall into the category of Save My Work, which means it's going to save everything that you've entered so far and keep you on the page. If you save your work and return to the previous page, you're going to go back a page and have everything that you've typed in saved. If you save the work and mark as completed, it's going to save all of your information and verify that the information that you've provided is the correct type of information, meaning that if we're asking for a number, it's going to verify that you're giving a number. If it's asking for text and you don't put text, or you put types of characters that we don't recognize, it's going to give you an error. Additionally, if you don't answer or provide answers in a question that has an asterisk, which is a required question, it is not going to let you mark the item as completed. Back in the area up here, if you have no volunteers, if you place a 0 in that box, you will be allowed to continue. So just to show the various ways, I'm going to go ahead and save my work. And you'll see now that my status has changed to in progress. I can view what I've done so far if I want to do that. I can return to the overview page, and in this case, I know that I have just saved it, so I could happily do that. If I started to type and realized, oh, that's not what I meant what I had originally, if you just hit return to the overview page, you won't save what you had, and the most recent save, that information will remain. So you want to be very careful about making sure that you save before you go anywhere else. This software is different in that if you are working, say you're entering your website and you decide that you want to go up and look at your agency profile, if you don't save before that, only the most recently saved information is going to be available. So I generally make it a practice to save my work as I'm working, and up in the upper corner you'll see the icons that reflect the options that you have at the bottom, and you can choose them through this way as well. My status is now in progress, and this is going to list what process I'm in. It's going to be the letter of intent. And from here, I'm going to, one of the options that you're going to have is to switch forms. And if you click on that, that's going to give you the remaining, or a list of all the forms for this application. So if you wanted to, you could jump right to that other parts of the application. I am not going to do that, but instead I'm going to come out and I'm going to save my work and return to the previous page. This means that I've saved the most recent information, and I'm coming back but you'll see that the application status is still in progress. When you either note that the information is complete and you're able to verify that, you have the authority to do that, you can save your work and mark as complete. Or if you have another individual within your organization that needs to review that, you can have them log on using a login that's been created for them, or using the agency information and have them log on, at which point after they've looked at it, they can save the work and mark it as complete and return to the overview page. When you save the work and mark as complete, again, I say it checks to make sure that all the information you put in is valid type, not content. So please review your content carefully. At this point, you'll see that the status is now completed and ready to submit. Completed and ready to submit does not mean that you cannot go any further, or that somebody has necessarily deemed that it can't be changed. You are able to change anything within your application until the time that you submit. Anytime you make changes, you'll now need to re-verify the form. So when you go in, if you should make a change, you're going to save your work and mark as completed again. You'll see it's still showing as in progress. Under the required uploads, this is where you will need to upload a copy of your most recent and valid 501c3 IRS determination letter, or a copy of your organization's articles of incorporation, at least at the front pages of that document if it's a large document. You're going to upload that. You're going to click on the required uploads, and it's going to tell you what it's looking for. And you're going to want to click on this choose file, and what that's going to do is open a browser, the browse feature for you, at which point you would navigate to wherever it is on your computer, or whether it's another drive that you have that information. And I am going to just choose a PDF that I happen to have. You would want to be choosing, obviously, the correct document. If you get a message that the item is too large, please get a hold of me or Sue if you don't know how to make that smaller. We do recommend PDFs, but it will take all of these various types of documents. You'll see that it's going to tell you what the largest size is if you get an error. You can always see the size of the document. In this screen, it's telling me that this is 48 kilobytes, which I know is fine for this application. I've already got it. No, I didn't. I'm going to choose that file again. So I'm going to open. You'll see that at this point you need to save or upload the attachment. And it's telling me you have a link now so that you could click on that and verify that it's the right form. You only have one place to upload. If you have reason to need to upload something else, please get a hold of me. If you upload the wrong information, you can delete that and then upload the correct information. Now, you've saved that, so you can return to the overview page. Go up here to switch forms. You can view the form. I'm going to return to the overview page, and you'll see now that this required uploads is complete. Now I'm going to go into the concept paper. This is where you're going to create the letter of intent. The program name is going to be there, and you will not be able to get into that. You want to list who the primary contact is. Most of that information should be there, as you already entered it. This is where you're going to make your case for why you should be invited back to submit a full RFP. You have 4,000 characters to do that. There is information here. Whenever you hold your cursor over a question mark, you will get a pop-out box that will tell you if we have some extra recommendations or suggestions, any type of information that we want to give you. This is a little bit of an explanation on what your narrative should cover. There is more information over here in the Resource Center that talks about what a letter of intent is. you may want to take a look at that and make sure that you're covering that. This is a case where working in a Word document would make a lot of sense so that you can get your thoughts together and cover everything that needs to be covered. Here we want to put in the request, how much you're asking for this request. You are not bound to that amount if you're invited to full RFP, but you will be asked to explain why you made the change that you did. So if you are requesting $15,000 and get invited back to full RFP and ask $25,000 only because you're excited that you were actually asked back, that is not an acceptable reason to change that number. If, however, you initially requested 15 and then realized that you wanted to, there was another component to the program that was going to be an additional $10,000, you would just state that in the RFP when you're invited back. The program budget is going to be what is the budget for what you're proposing to work within. So this is going to be the low-cost adoption for senior cats and dogs. In this case, we're going to say that we're asking for the complete amount in order to run the program. But if we were actually only asking for money for a certain part of the program or a piece of the program, you would put that amount, the amount for the total budget in here. And when you hit save my work below, it's going to calculate what percentage of the budget that is. This is a little different when you're doing an organizational development request, and that'll be explained in that area. Under the geographic area served, you want to click to indicate that you do provide services in at least one of the communities within the foundation service territory, and those towns are listed here. You do not have to have your organization headquartered or have a physical location in our area. However, you do need to be providing services in the area already, or be willing to have a strong indication of why you believe you would be able to provide services in the area, and that would be addressed in your full RFP if you were invited back. Again, it's being asked to say that the information is correct and the authorized signature, Mary Jane Dobson. And then I'm going to indicate today's date. And because I'm a little paranoid, I'm going to save my work. Take a look. Now I'm going to come and I'm going to save my work and mark as completed. Now you'll see that since I have completed all of the forms correctly, meaning I've given it the information that it's requesting, I am being given the opportunity to submit the application. You can have anybody that you would like review the application before sending. I highly recommend printing the application, having others review it. Sometimes when you're reading information, things that you know or that you've written appear to make sense to you, but you might be misstating or have an error in your grammar. It's better to correct that before. You can have access to your application after, up until the deadline, but it is best to do that before and easiest. So at this point, we have decided that we are ready. And so as part of agreeing that the application is ready, I'm going to put the name of the executive director. And I'm going to list who is submitting the application. And then there's a space for send the submission confirmation email to. In that space, you need to give a valid email address for someone who will be aware of this email coming to them and be looking for it. This is where your confirmation is going to be. If there's any question about making the deadline or any of that type of information, that email is going to be your receipt of having done that. This is the only person that's going to get notification, so you need to make sure that that person is aware and ready to forward or send that to anybody else in your organization that might need that. Please keep an eye out, or make sure that the intended person keeps an eye out for that. If it doesn't come within a reasonable amount of time, check your spam folder, and if not, then give us a call. We'll see if perhaps there was an error, but you should definitely receive that receipt. Once you're ready to go, you're going to submit the application now, and you'll see that it thanks you for your submission. It's going to tell you again what I just said about the emails. There is the verification email does come from the software, although it is listed as being my email. You can put in your settings to accept mail from the IP address that's listed here or the domain that's listed here. If you don't know how to do that, you may want to notify your IT department. If you get the email, it obviously is fine. All of the submissions that are received before the deadline are going to be reviewed and invited for invitation to the full proposal. After that part takes place, there'll be an email notification to everyone who submits, and at that time, if you're invited to the full proposal, you'll have detailed instructions on how you're going to proceed. As you come down to look at what's here, you're going to see that everything is listed as submitted. You're only going to be able to read what you submitted. You're not going to have access to any of your answers. If you need to make a change before the deadline of submission, please contact myself or Sue Corio, and we can open the application back up for you. However, after that time, you will not have access to change that information. This is a permanent record of your application, so after it is submitted finally, no changes will be made to it. You can print a viewable version of the application, and that's the opportunity also to make a PDF of it. I highly recommend doing that. If you were going to be applying for the General Endowment Organizational Development, you would again do that by coming up here and clicking to apply there. I recommend taking a look at any around the software. Take a look at the video on going through the application and on the software on how to update your information and your profile. Please write down your username and password or put it somewhere that you'll remember, but if you do need to be reminded of that, please contact Sue Corio or myself. We can reset it for you. The other thing that we are able to do is once you have established yourself as an agency, we can go on the software and basically mirror what you're doing, which means we sign on and we see exactly what you see. So if you're having difficulty, we can come into the application, see what you're looking at, and see where there's possibly an issue. Please don't be afraid to reach out. Many times we have uncovered bugs, and there are system glitches, what servers go down, wonky things can happen within the software. So please, as soon as you're having any trouble, please reach out. There's no stupid question. There's no silly question. I am an extremely patient person, and I will be happy to help you and anyone in your agency as much as possible. You always want to sign out when you're done. If at any point you want to refresh your screen, if you're working with Sue or myself and we make a change on our end of the portal, which is what we call behind the scenes, we may ask you to right-click and reload. And in that case, what would happen is when you reload, the information that we've provided or we've changed is going to populate for you. When you sign out, you are closing out the access to the application for your user. Your user profile is going to be the information for Mary Jane Dobson. You can change your password here if you'd like to do that. And information on how to add other users to this or our other contacts to either your agency profile or the program profiles is going to be listed in another video that will be put up online. Thank you. I appreciate your time and look forward to working through you this season.